Good morning, good morning. It's Carol Chamberlain in for the lovely Leza Live on the News 103.5 KYCA. So good to be back in this chair. Hello, Matt.
It's so good to have you back in that chair, too. Yesterday was madness.
Oh, Monday Madness without Carol.
Yeah, Monday Madness with Matt Santos.
Actually, it was a good show regardless.
Okay, good.
You just sailed right on through, but I hear a chuckle from the Drew booth.
The Drew booth. Wow.
That's a new one.
So, you had the day off. What'd you do, Drew?
Yesterday, just kind of recouped from the weekend.
Hard weekend?
No, had a nice weekend. Went out and visited some friends, and we were on Lake Havasu, out on the lake in a boat, and that was kind of nice. And
Wait a minute. Wasn't it really cold and sort of wet?
it was absolutely 180 out. We left on Friday, went through rain, sleet, snow, hail, got to the 40, and it was raining unbelievable.
I hate that.
We got to Kingman. It was like somebody just turned the faucet off. It was sunny, 75 degrees with a light breeze.
Oh my gosh! Now you went through a season or two.
Yeah, it was like, gee, maybe it's going to be a hard weekend. Then we get there, it's like, oh, this is beautiful. So it was a nice weekend. I got to go to the Run for the Sun, which is the largest car show out there in Havasu. They had over 1,000 cars. It was just an incredible show. It worked out really nice. My sweetheart got to get her massage and her mani-pedis. She was, not with me. I got to go to the car show. We hooked up for dinner. It was wonderful.
Actually, that's sort of the perfect vacation, is it not?
Hey, she was happy.
And
that's
so
all
were
that
you.
matters.
That is really good. So, Matt, you've been working.
You got to get paid somehow.
Well, I just love that. So you're the ad that you cut with Drew and Leza must be working. You got lots in escrow.
No, it's not. No, I've had one
You could
person
lie and
call
make
about
us feel
it.
good.
Okay, no, it's working incredibly. It's changed my whole life.
Well, it
Mostly
certainly
Drew.
has. Well, it's a great commercial. I love listening to it.
I definitely come off as more desperate now.
But you don't sound so desperate. It's going to be a good month for you.
I hope it's going to be a good year. I mean, we need this election to hurry up and end so people start buying houses again. That's what we need.
Oh, my gosh. Do we ever need this election to be over? I'm so tired of those TV commercials. But I have to tell you, I voted yesterday. Have you voted, Matt?
No, it's sitting on my coffee table. I'll get there eventually.
But sitting on your coffee table, filled out or not filled out?
Not filled out.
How about you, Drew?
I've got a few more propositions that I'm still studying, and my goal is to have that done by, Wednesday or Thursday and go down to Fair Street and drop it off. There's a couple propositions. I keep reading them, and it seems like the more I read them, the more confused I get on a couple of them.
I certainly can appreciate that. Ken and I did the same thing with that ballot over the weekend, and there are a couple of them that seem like they're sort of going against one another, which to me is, I think they're just muddying the waters on some things.
And I agree with you, because the way they're written, if you read what's in the ballot, it doesn't match up with what's in the booklet. And then I'm going back and forth, and I don't want to make a wrong decision. So I said, you know what? There's about 4 or 5 of these I got done. I said, I'm going to put them aside, and I'll finish them tomorrow. Tomorrow being tonight.
Congratulations.
I get them done tonight after Taco Tuesday.
I was going to say, have a taco and fill out your ballot.
Absolutely.
Well, I actually started to wear my I voted sticker, but I was afraid that it would lose its adhesiveness so that I couldn't wear it on the real Tuesday. So I'll wait.
Wait,
You
I got
can
a
get
question.
more than one sticker, though.
Well, but one for me and one for Ken.
Okay. All right.
You're supposed to know what you're voting for?
Oh.
I usually just sit there and spell out Metallica with the bubbles like I did in school.
And that got you through, didn't it?
It did. I got a solid C.
Solid C. Come on.
No, I was a good student other than math.
National Honor Society?
No.
Oh.
No, I'm not that smart. That's my sisters.
Oh.
Both of them.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
really
I
good.
take after Mom.
I
I
bet.
hope she's not listening.
Oh,
Of course she is.
Of course she is. That's why I said I hope she's not listening.
I bet Drew was in the National Honor Society.
Oh no.
Oh, what was it? The morality clause, or
He was in the National Hoodlum Society.
Yeah, thank you. That's probably and I'm probably the going to be the CEO of that group,
oh,
The
speaking.
president.
Oh, that's really
president
good.
CEO.
I love that. Okay, so who watched the game last night?
Not it.
The Cardinals.
The Cardinals and Chargers, right?
Oh, I didn't see Drew's hand raised. You did. How did you like that game?
I didn't watch the first half that much because I was doing some other stuff, but the second half looked pretty good, and I thought that that last run, they went right down to the last second, and it was good to see the Cards get the win.
Oh, it was
And
absolutely.
they needed that.
But I was watching the people's faces in the stands when they let that clock run down to 2 seconds before they made that kick. And I thought, oh my gosh, that woman looks just like I feel. I guess I don't understand that strategy just in case. That was a lot of pressure on our new kicker.
That's what he does.
Oh.
That's his position. That's what he does for the team. Pressure's part of the game.
I guess it is. And I guess that's what they enjoy.
And I
so
thought it
much.
was a great move because the way San Diego was moving the ball, if they left 45 seconds on the clock, all it takes is one pass interference, you kick a field goal, and then you're done. So,
Yeah.
their clock management was very good yesterday. I thought it was very good. I'm pretty critical on the Cardinals, but hey, a win's a win, whether it's ugly or not. It's a W. We got it. It's good.
I tell you what, they were taking a lot of knees at that very last minute of the game. But it was pretty impressive to see Kyler running down 43 yards for a rush, whatever you call it. Except he holds that ball out here. I am always so surprised to see that. He's not a tuck person. He's a holdout far front person.
Well, he's got some speed.
He does have that.
He's got speed. He's got moves, and that's what he's got to count on. But holding the ball like a running back slows him down. So you're kind of damned you do and you're damned you don't.
Gotcha. Just as long as there's nobody around to knock them out, because they were knocking some balls out yesterday.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
Let's talk about the real controversy
What's
about
that?
last night.
What?
The cheerleaders.
I didn't even see one.
Right. That's the controversy. They told them they were not allowed to be on the field. They were on the field a total of 2 minutes.
Well, why?
Because they were blocking people's view, according to the administration of the Cardinals, is what they said on the news this morning.
I would have to tell you, I would think that the way they look, some people would like that view.
I would prefer that view. Yeah, I have a personal connection to the Cardinals. Their coach is the Arizona Rattlers' former coach, so I know her quite well, and a lot of the cheerleaders are former Rattlers cheerleaders, and they all do a very, very fantastic job. So it's sad not seeing them on the field.
Well, actually, they ought to get those cameras out of the way so it doesn't block the view.
Or just have a camera on the cheerleaders the whole time.
Well,
Yeah, that works.
the whole time.
Yep.
To heck with the game.
To heck with the game. I'm there for the ladies. All right.
I think that's pretty funny.
So Drew was asking if Ma Henshaw was listening, and she is.
Oh,
she just texted
she
me.
must have texted.
She said, "How dare you? I was in the National Honor Society."
Good for her.
So clearly I don't take after either of my parents. I must be adopted.
I think she'd know if you were adopted. Okay. So the pumpkin weighing contest in Northern California, I guess it was Half Moon Bay. The winner of the pumpkin contest was a Minnesota horticulture teacher, and I guess it's the 4th time he's won in a row.
Yes, it is.
Pretty good.
He
But
beat his old record by 6 pounds.
he beat the other guy by 6 pounds. I thought last year his was 300 pounds more. Oh, well, something.
This year was 6 pounds more than than last year.
I see. That is really amazing.
That's
And
a huge pumpkin.
it
by the way.
was. I saw him standing there. You could barely see him over the pumpkin. But it's not carvable. I mean, there's no way that you could carve that pumpkin.
Do you think Costco goes in and like bids for the pumpkin so that they can make all their pumpkin pies?
Actually,
Yeah, you only have to buy one.
Yeah.
what a thought that would be. But do you know how hard it would be just to get the stuff out of that pumpkin?
It'd be a lot of work.
Oh, it would be a lot of work. I think it's easier to open cans. Anyway, I want to know how much he made for that because he actually drove that gourd 35 hours from Minnesota to California. So it just in gas, it cost him a lot of money, and it didn't say anything about a purse.
It was over. I'm not sure exactly of the number, but it was over 25,000. I think last year the winner got 30,000. This year they're doing it by another formula, but it was like $26,000 plus.
Oh,
is
well,
what he got.
actually, I am so glad to hear that.
That's a lot of pumpkin.
It is a lot of pumpkin, and he would frankly need that just to pay for the fertilizer because he says it's all in the soil.
And the gas to take it over there.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
at least 25 grand to haul that pumpkin.
With the
With a
today's
diesel?
cost,
Oh, yeah.
You're looking at probably a good $1,500 in gas
Oh.
from Minnesota to California.
Oh.
Got to figure it's what 4,400 miles round trip, 10 miles to the gallon, right?
Oh my gosh, that's more than I would have even thought. I don't do that math. I just fill the pump.
Okay.
That's pretty good. You're good there. Okay, so yesterday you heard by text from Leza.
You heard your text from Leza.
You heard.
Oh, yes. I
you,
heard
Matt,
by, yes.
heard by text from Leza.
Yes, that she was trying to call in. Yes.
I think she probably didn't pay for the international plan. What do you think?
I'm just sticking with that it was T-Mobile.
Blame it on somebody else.
Yep.
Yeah, T-Mobile. By the way, I saw a T-Mobile commercial with Snoop Dogg in it.
He's everywhere.
He is everywhere. I just said to Matt, I think he must have the Agent of the Year or something.
I think the bigger question is, Carol, what's your favorite Snoop Dogg song?
Oh my gosh, that's you got me there. I don't have one.
You don't have one. I figured you're a gin and juice person.
Oh, actually, I didn't. That's a good one. I don't listen to Snoop Dogg. I listen to him a lot now. I watch The Voice. I watched him on the Olympics. I saw him on a T-Mobile commercial, so he is everywhere.
Does it make you want to listen to his music now?
Well, actually, that is a really good question. Put me on the spot. I would say yes.
Matt, stop doing that to
Yes,
her.
sir.
I'm
Yes, sir. I'll be nice.
I'm gonna go download Gin and Juice.
Gin and juice? Yeah.
Gin and Juice.
Uh-huh.
Because, frankly, that's Ken's drink. He drinks gin and lime juice.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Oh my gosh!
I think he'll like the song.
I now have a new anthem for Ken.
Yeah. You could make it his ringer.
In a meeting, can you see that? I'll have to hear the song.
Oh, that'd be
first.
so funny.
Or the gin and juice version done by Leftover Salmon. There you go.
Oh, there you go.
Is there such a group as Leftover Salmon?
Absolutely.
And they sing gin and juice?
And they took it and brought it into country and western style, and it's hilarious.
Okay, I'll have to listen to both of those renditions after this. But the reason I was saying something about Leza is she should really be with her pooch today. Bubba must really be missing her because today is National Make a Dog's Day.
Oh, I did that.
How?
My Bella came into the, 4 o'clock like clockwork. She jumps on the bed, and I sat there and petted her for like a good 6-7 minutes and rub her belly, and she's happy as a clam.
Oh, so you made your dog's day on Make a Dog's Day.
Didn't know that, but she deserves it.
Oh,
She's wonderful.
She does deserve that. And mine was standing up looking at me like, well, it's 8 o'clock. Aren't we going for a walk? And the answer was no, I was walking out the door. Anyway, do you know that the average person spends $1,700 annually on their dogs? Does that make sense to you, $1,700?
I think that's low.
Yeah,
Actually-
that's
I've
great.
I've
Grief
already
puppy.
blown through that, and she's only 15 months old.
How much does she weigh now?
66 pounds.
Oh, how old is she?
She just turned 15 months.
Oh my gosh, she's got some more growing to do.
She's going to fill out. I mean, you know, maybe a half an inch height or length, but for the most part, she's going to start, getting buff.
So that's funny. So as she stands by your side with your hand down, does she fit completely in the palm of your hand?
Close.
Max does that. Max, our standard poodle, and he weighs 75 pounds. So she's getting up there with him.
Oh, yeah. And she's got all kinds of energy. We left her with some friends when we went to Havasu, and she came back. She was very happy to see us for about 5 minutes, and then she realized, oh, you guys left me, so I'm going to go over here and chew this and make
Exactly.
it over here. You left me, now you pay the price. And I don't get mad at her. I just like, okay.
Oh, you're paying me back. I understand that feeling. I do understand that feeling. So, but I do want to, before our break, I want to say that people should remember that there are about 3.5 million dogs in shelters around the country. So let's do remember to adopt a dog if you have an opportunity to do that. So when we get back after the break, it is part of my A Day in the Life of series, and today it's a day in the life of a pastor. We'll be back right after this. Morning again. It's Carol Chamberlain in for Leza Live on the News 103.5 KYCA. I am so happy to welcome, let me see if I can do this without twisting my tongue, A Day in the Life of Pastor Dan Storvik. Welcome, Dan.
Good to be here.
good to have you. Such a good friend of mine. I'm sitting across from the man who married Ken and me. Yes, you
What
did.
a fun time that was.
It
New
was,
Year's Eve, wasn't it?
it was New Year's Eve after an incredibly long engagement, but we won't go into that. Thank you very much. So you are here because a friend of mine's son-in-law, when I was talking about doing a series on the day in the life of, really was interested in what a pastor does because truthfully, as I was thinking about it, you deal with things from birth to death
Yep.
every day, it seems to me. So let's talk about what got you started in this. Who is the first person who created a memory of God for you?
My father and mother.
Oh, that's
Both of
actually
them.
good.
Yeah. My dad also happened to have been a Lutheran pastor, and so I was, as they say, raised in a parsonage.
Oh, and your mother also a very supportive religious person?
A bit more than that. Yeah. She's one of the people that influenced me to go into the ministry, in spite of the fact that I swore that I would never become a pastor.
You did? Well, what were you thinking about being if you weren't going to be a pastor?
Mortician, physician, or haberdasher. Or radio announcer.
Oh, well, you do have the voice for it. So you actually, in all those things, a haberdasher because you're quite the dresser, and a doctor because I'm sure you minister to people. You do all that. So tell me, what is the first recollection of something you did as a new pastor?
When I was brand new in the ministry, I conducted a wedding and a funeral. No, not a wedding and a baptism in one day. Brand new. I was pooped.
Baptism by fire, as
Yeah,
they say.
yeah.
That's really cool. So, but coming back a little bit, how long does it take? Do you go to school to be a minister? Are you just spiritually moved? What does it take?
Well, in my denominational family, it requires first a bachelor's degree at an accredited college or university, and then 4 years at a seminary, which includes 1 year of internship, which is like student teaching. So it's an 8-year path after high school.
Wow. So that really is like as long as it takes to become a physician in terms of school.
Correct.
And then they have residencies and internships, and you probably did too. Were you an assistant pastor first?
I was assistant and then changed to an associate pastor, and after 3 years in a parish in North Los Angeles, a little town called Granada Hills, I moved over to Richard Nixon's birthplace, Yorba Linda, California.
Oh.
Where I served a church there for a dozen years. And then somehow in God's providence, I heard of this place called Prescott, Arizona. I said, Prescott, where's that? I had to get corrected.
And then you learned.
It's Prescott, like biscuit, is what I learned.
Yeah, you're gonna get in trouble saying it like that on the radio. They're gonna
well,
call in.
Let them call. Let them call. I know how it's said.
And now you certainly know how it's said.
Anyway, so that's been the past. I've been a pastor for 51 years, and I retired a few years back from American Lutheran Church, right across from the high school in town, where I had served for 24 years, and then they put the pastor out to pasture.
And my recollection is you had to leave that church for a year when the new pastor came in.
Oh,
Is
yeah,
that right?
you had to stay away from it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then he said, you can come back, just mind your manners, pay your tithe, and don't try to influence things. Which, my wife said, that's good for the church because we like to stick our noses in where they may not belong anymore. And then when we see that they do things differently than we did, you go, was I doing it wrong?
No, just different. Actually, I think that's very funny because in nonprofit work, when you leave an organization, you're supposed to really leave that organization so that someone else can come in, make their stamp on it. Because a lot of people try to come in and become major gift fundraisers after they've been the head or the executive director, and it just doesn't exactly work. So I guess that's why. I have a question. Who is your spiritual hero?
Oh, I've got two or three of them. One of them is my wife of 55 years.
Louise.
When I was at my lowest point during college, she and my mom and my dad, those were the big three. And then there are a couple of people around town here who I won't bother to name because it would embarrass them, but they are the encouragers and the truth tellers, and we all need a what the Bible calls a Nathan, somebody who tells the truth. And sometimes they tell you whether you ask for it or not.
Oh, yes. In our friendship circle, I can certainly understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a break for a moment and be right back with Pastor Dan Storvik. See you on the other side. Hello again. It's Carol Chamberlain in for Leza live on the news 103.5 KYCA, talking with Pastor Dan Storvik, which is not your exact title. I think we need to back up a minute. So 8 years after high school is what it takes just an ordinary pastor to become a pastor.
In our denomination, yes.
In your denomination. What sort of educational background do you have?
Mostly life.
That's a good one.
Yeah. But in college, I majored in speech communication. In seminary, it was general Old Testament, New Testament counseling, what they call homiletics, and that's how to write a sermon that people will listen to.
Homiletics.
Homiletics, yeah.
Homiletic.
In the Catholic Church, they say the priest gave a fine homily.
Oh, gotcha.
And that class worked better on some preachers than on others. We won't go into that, but church history, I think I mentioned counseling, and most of which does very little good. You go out and you try to hit the ground running, and it's a whole new ball game.
Well, as you said, life has been your great school.
Yes.
But you have a doctorate
Yes.
in
leadership and planning, which I earned from Fuller Seminary in Pasadena. My undergraduate work was at California Lutheran University in Thousand Oaks, and then to seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota, where my father graduated 50 years before I did.
Oh my.
Yeah. And then a while in the parish, I decided that I was going to take some continuing ed courses, and they said, here, read this 5,000 pages and write a paper, and you get credit for it. So I did that while I was running a large church here in Prescott, and trying to raise a family with varying degrees of success.
You are pretty successful. Anyway, so what's your official title?
If you want to put it all in writing, it is the Reverend Dr. Daniel Storvik. Whoop-de-doo.
Well, it's very impressive.
That and a couple of bucks will get you a cup of coffee.
Actually, can you get a cup of coffee for $2? Anyway, can you share about a significant spiritual experience you've had in your life?
It would be in the flesh, in person, when I had a very difficult time in college. I've already mentioned them, my now wife of 55 years, Louise, and my mother and father. I'm not proud of this, but I flunked out of college.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And there were
Too much partying?
Immaturity. I wasn't cool enough to party. I just ADD would be the short answer.
Gotcha.
And when that happened, there were 3 people that stood by me. My fiance, well, she wasn't my fiance yet, but my mom and my dad, and all of them could have told me to go pound sand and good morning Vietnam.
Right.
But they stood by me, and they were for me what I like to call the grace of God in the flesh. Other experiences have been when I have had various opportunities to serve other churches during my tenure at those 3 that I mentioned in San Fernando Valley and Yorba Linda and here in Prescott. There were other congregations that said, come and be our pastor. And going through the process of thinking and praying and writing and reflecting about that, you go, this is interesting. But I mean, the list of spiritual experiences goes on, participating in praying for people and watching them actually find healing and hope, which is, if I can segue into something else, that's what I love to give people, is hope.
Absolutely. And I would think that is high on the list of what many preachers, pastors offer.
Yep.
So I can remember distinctly having a good friend of mine her husband was very sick and in the process of dying. called me for your number, and you went to be by his side as he passed. Is that something that you do often?
Not often, but when I do, it is, for me, one of the highest honors in my work, because that's a very, very significant time in people's lives as they pass away.
It certainly is. And having someone guide that process to me would be just extremely, extremely helpful. And I know that was in the case of my good friend. So for that, I and she thank you deeply. I think I'm hearing that we need to take a break. So we're going to do that right now and come back after to talk more with Pastor Dan Storvik. Hello again. It's Carol Chamberlain in for Leza Live on the News 103.5 KYCA, talking with Pastor Dan Storvik. So, Dan, we have now talked about funerals, baptisms, funerals, helping people pass. What else would you say fills a day of a pastor?
Well, those things that you just mentioned are the tip of the iceberg. That's what's seen in public. The behind the scenes is, for example, I like to say I'm in the slow group. When I preach a sermon on Sunday, which is average about 20 to 25 minutes, my wife says they should be shorter, but that's another story.
Actually, that's a good length of time.
That's the result of about 10 to 15 hours of work and writing. So that would take a part of my day. Part of it, of the day in the life of a pastor, is administration, managing staff. And we had a good sized staff at American Lutheran. And this may come as a surprise to you, but they're all human.
Oh, yes, they
Yeah.
are.
They're all people, and sometimes there were difficulties, sadness, conflict, loss, and challenges and puzzlement. So part of it is that, and then
So you're a referee.
that would be a bit of I'm not sure I would try to call it that, because you try to referee and then you get it from both sides. They both think you're a jerk. But encouraging staff, encouraging people, and if you were to ask me, having been retired for 12 years, people said, Storvik, what do you miss about ministry? I said, it's the people.
Of course.
Yeah. I enjoy being around people, and God has given me opportunity to preach at a little startup church out in Prescott Valley a couple times a month. So I get to go there and preach to them and love on them, and then I'm still, because I behave myself, I'm still allowed to worship at American Lutheran. And so there are people that have been longtime friends, and I get to see them, and you hang around a town for a long time, and it you can't buy it. You just can't buy the privilege of doing that. So anyway, I digress here. Ask me another question.
I'm going to ask you one. What's the role of the church in the community?
There are a lot of roles that they play. Among them is holding a moral tenor to the community. We argue about whether or not the Ten Commandments should be posted in public places, and whether you think that's a good idea or a bad idea. The church has an obligation in one way or another to represent higher moral standards. There was a place in the Bible where everyone did what was right in his own mind, and the society went to pot, because we are what we call sinners, and we're not inclined to do good. So the church, that's one thing, holding a moral tenor, and that would include the moral instruction of youngsters. The place of the church in the community, as we've already talked about, is helping people tie the knot, water the tot, and fill the plot.
I love that.
Marriages, baptisms, and funerals. And then it is also, I wish this were not so, but the government is doing a lot of social services.
Yes.
And the reason why?
Because the churches aren't anymore.
Yeah, they failed at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when churches try to do that, and there are some very brightly shining lights in this town of Christian folks who are lifting the light. Salvation Army, for one. Front cover of the Courier this morning was Agape House.
Right.
And little people lighting candles makes a difference in the lives of folks. So that's the business of the church. And as I say, I've mentioned it already, discover joy and finding hope and purpose in life.
It's really interesting that you were talking about how the church, the government has had to take over from the church a lot of the things that they did do. And it's true. I mean, it's something that I, with my work in the community, have really recognized myself. But there's another thing that you had to do as a pastor, and that's fundraise. I think not a lot of people realize that one of your jobs is to raise money to do the good things that you can do in your church. How was that for you?
It's an interesting task. I did it because I was trained to and asked to, and that's to encourage people to, what I would say, claim the promise, which says, given it will be given to you. And we have seen an abundance of examples of people who are not ethical. They raise money and they line their pockets.
Oh my gosh, yes, we all have.
Yeah, and so when the church comes and says, "Can you share some of your resources?" there is an appropriate level of skepticism. And the church has an obligation to be out front with its books, which we always were in our church. So it is something you do, and you encourage by reports every few months saying, here's what we're doing, here's how we're doing, keep up the good work, and there's a long way to go. But the truth be told, we do have a longer way to go.
Oh, there's no question about
Yeah.
it. It's interesting. I love to raise money. I've always loved raising money. And a lot of people look at me like I'm crazy, but you never have. I thought that was always really good. So, how do you approach interpreting the Bible? I know that you're a scholar. How do you approach interpreting it?
Well, there's a very, very simple principle out front. The summary version is observe, interpret, apply. You observe what is being said, and then you try to interpret it. What did those who wrote those words mean in their context? And then apply is, what does that have to do with me, us, today? Simple,
It,
but people spend decades, their whole lives, trying to unpack that and get at the original meaning.
but you did it in like 4 words. I love that. So hold on to that thought.
Sure.
We'll be right back after these words. Hello again. It's Carol Chamberlain in for Leza live on the News 103.5 KYCA in our last little bit with Pastor Dan Storvik. So, Dan, what's your favorite Bible verse?
Two of them. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life.
Oh, how that rolls off your tongue.
And then the second is John chapter 10, verse 10, I came that they might have life and have it abundantly. Too many people, I wish we were on TV, think of God as a stranglehold on you. And Jesus said the exact opposite. It's to have life open up for you.
Oh, that is a wonderful thought. And
Oh, one more.
okay.
Old Testament, Jeremiah 31:34. I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you,
Oh,
to give you a future and a hope.
see, and that is really who you are, is somebody who wants to offer hope to everybody. This is a question that I think is an absurd one, but I read about it when I was preparing for this, so I'm going to ask you. What really happens when you die?
Wow. Well, the Bible says, when we die, we meet our Maker, and anything beyond that is his business, not mine. We claim the promises that we have an eternal home. But again, in fact, I'm preaching on that this Sunday in the church that I help out in Prescott Valley. And when you see somebody die, you say, well, where do they go? And if you try to answer that, it's none of your business. It's God's business.
Oh, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
You're putting yourself in God's place if you try to answer that question. You can say, I believe and I hope, but
there's that hope again. I used to be an emergency room nurse, so I have seen a lot of people pass from this life to whatever. And it's always been interesting to me to see what someone experiences when they die. Some people are fighting it tooth and nail, and some people are just joyous. Not joyous, but they're just fine with whatever's going to happen next.
at peace.
I have to believe that has something to do with life's preparation.
Sure.
Sure. So how do you live your faith?
I live my faith by trying to practice what I preach. And one of my favorite chapters or verses in the Bible is from the Apostle Paul in Romans chapter 7. He says, the good I would that I do not, and the evil that I would not, that is what I do. So we mess up a lot. So how do I live my faith? I try to do what Scripture commands, and I pray, I read my Bible, I study, I meditate on it, and I try to, as I say, encourage others and lift them up when they're down. And I don't have quite the courage to slap them when they think they're too important, but
I have to ask one thing, and I know we don't have a lot of time left, but how do you stay spiritually and professionally refreshed in your role as a pastor?
well, now it's what I just mentioned, but during my working years, it was through rest, at which my wife would tell you I was not very good, but we took vacations. I went to conferences, workshops, and the reading for my various degrees. That kept me refreshed, and I hang out with people who encourage me.
Oh, that's good.
They're a good influence on me, yeah.
So, and the reason I asked that is there was a recent study that said 4 out of every 10 clergy have considered leaving that role since 2020, which really surprised me. Does that surprise you?
Not really, because the demands that are placed on them and the influences that pull them in different directions. No, it doesn't.
It would be a very big void if people weren't preparing themselves to take over for these 4 out of 10 who are leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So I have really enjoyed my time with you this morning. Is there anything that you would want to say to someone who is considering entering the ministry?
Don't do it if you can avoid it.
Why?
Well, because there is what we call, who are believers, God puts a call on your heart. And you better listen to that if you think that's where the Lord is calling you. And if you think, oh, golly, this would just be a nice job, you're fooling yourself, number one. And number two, you better check to see what your motivations are.
So I have to tell you, we are certainly grateful that you were called, and I am delighted that you're in my life. So
that's 2 ways.
It's been a wonderful time with Pastor Dan Storvik talking about a day in the life of a pastor. It's Carol Chamberlain saying, I'll see you tomorrow, and thanks for listening.